and I will hand to Janet.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Dr. Janet Scammell. I'm a visiting fellow at Bournemouth University, and I've got great pleasure in hosting and introducing Sharon Wait's presentation. I've known Sharon for some time, first when she was a senior nurse in one of our local trusts, and I was able to, as an academic, go along to her meetings and represent the university and see how compassionate she was and the way she managed her teams. And then we worked together in some of the work around implementing our humanising care curriculum. And that was very much had a compassionate thread to it. So I'm not surprised at all that Sharon has chosen to study compassion for her PhD. And her presentation today is, she's going to tell us a bit about her journey to date. She's not finished yet, but she's done some great work so far. And she's going to tell you a little bit about that journey and the methodology and some of the challenges. And her presentation is called What Enables Qualified Nurses to Be and to Remain Compassionate. So if you've got any issues, anybody that you'd like to raise, do put it in the chat and then we can take them at the end. But over to you, Sharon.
Okay, thank you very much, Janet. So can you hear me and can you see the screen? Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks, Liz. Let me just do that. Okay. Great, thank you very much for introducing me, Janet. That's really, really kind. I wanted to just share with you my study that I'm currently working on, which is a phenomenological study looking into what enables practicing nurses to remain compassionate, and that is to remain compassionate, having been registered for 5 years or more. So let me say, I can't see it now. Better. Okay. My aim is to understand the lived experience of nurses remaining compassionate once they've been qualified for, in my study, following 5 years, and to use phenomenology as my methodology to understand from nurse participants' perspective, their lived experience of being compassionate or remaining compassionate, and what that means to them. So making sense of remaining compassionate. And my literature review so far, which has been quite extensive, there is a lot on compassion, compassionate nursing, what is compassion in nursing and in healthcare. And it's a very complex concept in relation to compassion. It's a part of our strategy, it's nursing philosophy, there's just so much about compassion. And in particular, one of the sort of key things that I'm finding from the literature so far is how nurses should be compassionate, show compassion, and what do they do? And importantly, I found that a lot is sort of discussed in the research about what gets in the way to being compassionate, and what hinders, and what support and what is needed to enable nurses to be compassionate. And that's why I want to focus, and I feel that the gap of my study is in that so much is focused on what it should be, what it can be, what nurses need to do, what nurses need to access in order to be compassionate. But I've yet to find something in the literature that truly focuses on the lived experience of nurses, qualified nurses, and what enables them to remain compassionate from their perspective and to make sense of that from the experience of qualified nurses. So I really want to get that deeper understanding on from each of the nurse participants and what they value about remaining compassionate, and not on what they should or they do not do around compassion. So my methodology is phenomenology. It's phenomenologically orientated to capture the lived experience of the nurses themselves on remaining compassionate as nurses see that. So as nurses make sense of remaining compassionate in their practice, and to sort of make sense of what quite often is taken for granted, that phenomena of being compassionate, and it is sort of taken for granted, if you like, and not really that deeper understanding of remaining compassionate, and to have this focus upon what nurses value about being and remaining compassionate, making sense of their lived experience, and to tap into that hidden knowledge that that nurses can express and explain about remaining compassionate, which is why I really want to use this to have this phenomenological orientated study. I, as part of as my data analysis, I intend to use interpretive phenomenological analysis as my methods, and use phenomenology orientated interviews. So very much for the participants, for my nurse participants, to tell their story about remaining compassionate from their perspective. So that to me is incredibly important to use this, to use methodology and this methods to enable that sort of deeper expression and discussion from the nurses to tell their story. Whilst it must be my nurse participant led, I obviously I'm guided by me, and I believe that part of being my nursing background and understanding a bit about obviously understanding compassion, that will enable me to be empathetic whilst nurses talk about remaining compassionate in their everyday world, in their lives in nursing. And also this methodology enables me to, well, the nurses I recruit will be experts on remaining compassionate, and I think that again is important. And I'm obviously that enables me to sort of really be curious about what the practitioners are experiencing. I'm as part of the study, the nurse participants that I wish to recruit into the study. It's important for the study that nurses are working in a role that requires NMC registration, and also that nurses have been qualified for 5 years, at 5 years. A lot of the, again, in the literature that I've uncovered, is a wealth of literature on being compassionate, or what is compassion, from undergraduates and student nurses through to newly qualified nurses, and I want to really study nurses who have been qualified, and that sort of having that length of period in practice, and again who self-identify or self-report as being compassionate. And that can, for me, that will include nurses from various settings. And because I've said that nurses need to be in a working role and on with the NMC registration. That will hopefully I'll be able to recruit nurses from the various settings, including education, because we have nurse academics working in their role that require registration, as well as nurses working in practice settings. The important thing is to enable nurses to tell their story, their lived experience of remaining compassionate. My intention to recruit would be from professional nursing forums, from networks, in terms of nurse participants using that inclusion criteria. I'm currently looking at ethical considerations in my ethics proposal, and the key considerations are around recruiting participants, gatekeeper, and looking at the ethical considerations around gatekeeping, participant information, ensuring that participants are fully informed, consent is given, looking at data protection, anonymous data, and just being ethical in an ethical way. And I think this really does ethics for me, and compassion, and that sort of whole approach to nursing, for me, that comes together in my ethical considerations, those concepts, so ethics and empathy. So looking after my participants as well in that, during that process. My aim in terms of contribution of my study is to gain this deeper understanding about nurses' experience of remaining compassionate. As I've mentioned, it is a complex concept, value, virtue. Therefore, it's valuable to learn more about remaining compassionate in nursing. My contribution as well, I hope, would be to greater engagement in nursing, in the nursing profession, and in compassionate care, and enhance this compassion in the everyday world of nursing. Is certainly not something that is going away. It is something that's becoming. Compassion is something that we talk about most every day in terms of the nursing world. It's something that is here. So to enhance that knowledge and understanding in the everyday world of nursing about remaining compassionate, and to share that understanding of remaining compassionate and the development of a sort of future compassionate nursing workforce. And I think that, yeah, I'm going to stop and in terms of my overview of my study, and hopefully open it up for some helpful questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Sharon. I really found that interesting. I think there's been such a lot of work done on compassion over the years, hasn't there? And it seems to feature in so many mission statements of trust, doesn't it? But what does it really mean? It's the depth you're getting at, isn't it? That's the big issue. And you know, we did some work with undergraduates newly qualified at Bournemouth, and it's been done elsewhere a lot. So it's a really great study. So thank you so much for that. I've just been looking at the chat. And just going to zip down those first before we open it up a bit. Joanne Bosanke has just made the point that she's got a colleague at the Fonds charity who has also done some work in this area, and she thinks that she would be very keen to share with you so her insights into her PhD. So that would probably be worth following up. I'm sure it would.
Thank you.
And then Raluca's just asking a little bit around your inclusion criteria and why particularly you chose to go for including people that had to be qualified for at least 5 years. Any thoughts on that, Sharon?
Yes, because in terms of it's about how nurses remain compassionate. So I think the key word is remaining compassionate. And in order for that, you, in terms of the sort of whole world of nursing and being a nurse for some time, that's sort of the key to that in terms of remaining compassionate, because a lot of things get in the way. As I found in the literature, it's more about what gets in the way and how can we overcome that in terms of being compassionate and remaining compassionate. So for me, it is important in terms of that sort of qualified, and that period of time has passed in terms of working in the role of being a nurse.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I really think your emphasis on remain is a great one, in as much as there's quite a lot of work to show that people start off with these values and then become a bit burnt out as they experience real life care. So I think that's I can see where you're coming from there. And then Liz has asked, do you think that compassion is interpreted differently by different people?
Well, it is. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it will be. It is, and I think that is again important in terms of using phenomenology, and that in sort of, you know, getting that deeper understanding from that person, the participant themselves, in terms of understanding that and what that means. So yeah, I think that's important, isn't it, in terms of yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're going to get people to self-identify, aren't you, as being compassionate, because obviously it kind of leads you to think about what about those that don't think they're compassionate but are nurses. But that's probably a whole other study, Sharon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Vanessa's just mentioned Linda Finley's great work around reflexivity, which I guess you probably may have come across in your search around your chosen methodology. Is there anything particularly you wanted to add there, Vanessa, about that?
Not about Linda Finlay's work. It's just that reflexivity is really quite important within phenomenological research. I did have a later question, if I can pop it in now. I just wondered why IPA and not descriptive phenomenology?
Yeah. Because again, this sort of meticulous, sort of deeper, sort of interpreting the nurse's experience and their story about it remaining compassionate. Does that sort of so it's not for me to describe, is it? It's for me to, I want to get that real interpretation from the nurses themselves. Yeah, so their experience.
Yeah, this could be a big methodological debate, couldn't it? You have to, you take what fits, don't you, I suppose, to your aim and your intent.
Couldn't it, Vanessa? Can you just say something why you've asked that? Yeah.
Only because in descriptive phenomenology, what you're aiming to do is to describe. And so earlier when you responded to a question, when Liz asked, what does compassion mean different things for different people, a descriptive phenomenological approach would enable you to do that, because it would enable you to look at the essence of the phenomenon as well as the core aspects, and that's why I raised that in light of Liz's question. The reality is you can do either or, but I just would be very surprised if that doesn't come up in a Viva. So it might be something that you would want to look at. And you know, interpretive IPA is about interpretation. It's got the double helix around the interpretive lens, and so you could justify it on that point of view. We can have a cup of tea sometime and have a little chat.
No, it's really helpful. Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah,
that's a great offer, Vanessa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I knew there was going to be a bonus to this.
Oh, definitely. The pain's worth it, Sharon. And then Joanna has just come back with a really interesting comment that compassion is deeply intertwined with our professional identity. And she's asking if you've had a look at any of the Sigma resources and webinars, and she put a couple of links there. Would you like to say a little bit more about that, Joanne? Anything in particular?
Yeah, can do. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So I'm in my kitchen. So, I mean, I suppose I'm coming at it from the point of view that nursing is predominantly female. So we are predominantly seen as caregivers. And I wrote an editorial, I don't know, April time this year, which I've put in the link for you to look at. And I wanted to critique it because it was I was pushing the boat a little bit on it. But I was trying to look at how deeply seated the compassionate component is within nursing. So, are we going to work to give and give and give and give? Not going home at the end of a shift, staying because we feel guilt and shame because other people are busy, not going for breaks, all of that. All of that is happening right now. It's happened forever, but it's happening right now. And it's even more important that we look at it because we're not giving ourselves, we're not instilling self-compassion. So when we look at the 3 emotional regulatory systems, the Paul Gilbert's work, we don't self-soothe. And compassion, it also is about soothing, self-soothing. And I feel that we need to start at home with us, or else how on earth can we be compassionate if we don't feel it ourselves? So I think you are heading into an extremely complex area that is in desperate need of unpicking. So I'd be very happy to chat with you at any point because I think it's fascinating, but best of luck.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Really, yes, that's really helpful. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. I will be in touch.
Thank you, Joanne, for that. That's really helpful to Sharon in her journey. And in fact, you mentioned Paul Gilbert, Joanne, and Emma Collins has put in the chat that she'd watched a great seminar by him he's in the Compassionate Mind Foundation, who said there's no such thing as compassion burnout, rather system burnout. Absolutely. I wondered if you have any inclusion criteria for work environments. I don't know if you wanted to enlarge upon that, Emma, at all, so that Sharon can respond.
Yeah, hello. Sorry, I'm keeping my camera off because I have a poorly boy at home today. But I'm also really interested in compassion as a theme and looking at compassionate pedagogy actually myself. But I suppose one of the things I'm interested in, and having come from clinical practice, it's understanding whether there's a system burnout in terms of how systems are commissioned, in terms of if there's a contrast between acute environments, community environments, and if there's any similarities or what works well in some environments and what doesn't work so well in some environments, I suppose is what my thinking was.
I suppose, and I think, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, and just to sort of focus on the study that I presented, then one of the things is that I'm hoping that my nurse participants will be from a variety of settings, if that helps. And until those stories are told, in terms of, some of that I can't sort of answer. Does that make sense? But in terms of my actual research, I do. I want to. There will be inclusion in terms of nurse participants from various settings.
Yeah.
So community.
I think that sounds great, Sharon. Sorry, just to expand a little bit further, one of the issues I think is how services are commissioned. So if you've got a team in an acute block contract that can't expand and can't innovate and can't transform, because for example they're a community team in an acute trust, then that has different pressures than if they are within a community trust, if that makes sense. So I was just, it almost feels like there needs to be a bit of an understanding about how services are commissioned, perhaps.
I think that's a great point, Emma, because it's, you can have the compassion in the mission statement, but it's got to be interpreted at all levels, hasn't it? Not just the people on the shop floor, including commissioners. Joanne is just supporting your comment, Emma. Thank you, Joanne. And then Adrienne has mentioned that the timeless parable about compassion is the story of the Good Samaritan. And of course, there are many equivalents in other spiritual communities. It's something that people seem to have a kind of an innate awareness of. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Adrienne? Oh, maybe. Okay, so moving on to Liz, who's supporting Joanne's comments. And then Les has come up with Raluca's hand being up and me not noticing it. Thank you, Les. Sorry, Raluca, I beg your pardon. Would you like to comment?
Are you able, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. It's just going back to the comment. Okay, it's just going back to the comment of 5 years, which I thank you for the answer to that. I was just reflecting on what Emma and Joanne have said with regards to sort of system burnout and whether or not there is a link between nurses leaving the profession a lot earlier than 5 years. I mean, I've been qualified for 2 years and I can see my colleagues leaving already. And I'm sort of seeing that not a compassion burnout, but the system is so difficult at this point, perhaps because of COVID, that I think 5 years potentially we might be looking at a different demographic. That's why I was sort of asking about that 5 years, whether in the current system might be a little bit less than that, and whether there are any connections. It will be really, really interesting to know.
Yes, I suppose, yeah, absolutely. And of course, in terms of getting going on the study, in terms of nurses being qualified for 5 years, then and still on the register. So that in my study, that is going to encompass some of that, isn't it, in terms of the last 5 years, if you see what I mean. And in particular, maybe you're alluding to, you know, the recent sort of, you know, our times over the last 2 years in terms of COVID and pandemic and the sort of system issues, if not failures, maybe over this time. That sort of period is through my study in terms of its time. That's going to be part of that, isn't it? Does that make sense? In terms of my in terms of my sort of answer to that.
I think Raluca was
nurses that do face-to-face nursing, because I know you mentioned being from a variety of settings, which is absolutely great. I'm just checking with this face-to-face because you know you need an MC registration for different other things, and potentially you're not doing face-to-face with your patients.
Yeah. So it being on the register and working in a role, in a nursing role. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Sharon. I see, Les, you've got your hand up as well.
If I can, building on what Joanne said about compassion being such an important part of our professional identity and how we have to be compassionate to ourselves. And Liz also wrote in the chat that we need to be compassionate to each other as well. It's such an important part of what nursing is all about. Do you think that we can teach students to be compassionate, or is it something that just has to be there?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think it's just that it's both in a way? Because it's about, isn't it about being compassionate? Obviously it starts with self-compassion, and that's what a lot is published in the literature. That's certainly in the Compassionate Mind Forum. It's certainly in the International Spirituality Network Forum. It's in all those forums in terms of the importance of self-compassion. And then it's about, isn't it also, if we're teaching it's about understanding compassionate nursing, but it's also about demonstrating that and being compassionate, isn't it, in terms of role modeling as well. I think all that comes into play in terms of being compassionate, in terms of, particularly in terms of education. It's not easy. There's not easy. There's so many sort of variables, things get in the way of so much of that. I understand, but that's how I would part of my answer to that.
Thank you, Sharon. Just going back to the chat, there's quite a lot of support for the notion that compassion is also linked to, I guess, the issue of why people leave the profession, which we've kind of talked a little bit about as we've gone along. Joanne's asking about living our values, because I guess it's fairly easy to say I'm compassionate, but do we do as we say? That's maybe a comment for us to all think about. And Memories, thanking you for your topic. It's very thought-provoking. More support for Raluca's comments. And then Joanne's just also mentioned the repair project, which I'm sure you know about, Sharon. Paula by the university, she works in that project. That is a great resource. She's put the link in there for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm just being aware of the time, so I'm just quickly scrolling through because I'm under orders from Les that I can't run over. You can enhance compassion, says Liz, but can you make someone compassionate who isn't?
Good point.
And just some comments from Raluca about Leslie's question about can you teach compassion? And she's just saying it's a tricky question. It's an issue about students being more tuned into compassionate actions and the link with reflection. And then Julie McGarry is mentioning Hochschild's, not sure I'm saying that right, Julie, apologies if I'm not, work. Do you want to say a little bit about that, Julie?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you could.
Sorry, I think it's my spelling. So it's a Hochschild's work around emotional labour. So I think I think there's something of that too around compassion and the kind of classical arguments really around how that's manufactured and in some ways those kinds of tensions in emotional labour. I think that's really important.
That is a great link. Pam Smith did some stuff, didn't she,
yes,
as well?
Absolutely.
Built all that. Yes, And Heidi's just mentioning about encouraging students to be polite and that being part of compassion. And modelling compassion with children. I'm just quickly, people have got to leave. Yeah, can this be a cultural issue? That's from Raluca as well. And you have to have insight in order to be truly compassionate. All big links up with reflection and self-awareness and things like that too. Well, it's
some of these really interesting points in terms of what people are saying, having insight into to be truly compassionate, and that's the bit, isn't it, in terms of the exploration and actually finding out that what that is and making sense of some of that. That's why I want to use my my sort of phenomenological approach to this, in terms of that's the essence of what I really want to get at, and I think what I just have not uncovered yet in some of the literature and the studies that I've been following. So thank you in terms of those sort of questions, really.
Okay, well, can I thank everybody who's contributed so much to this debate today, and also, of course, special thank you to Sharon for kindly presenting her work on such an important topic. And I'm sure I speak for everybody to wish you the best of luck with your studies, and we look forward to hearing when you're finished and see what comes out at the other end. Many, many thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass now on to Liz, who I think is going to take on over the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Janet. And thank you both, Sharon and Vanessa, for really excellent presentations. One of the reasons I really enjoy all of our Phi Mu events is I learn something new from every presentation, and it's just a joy to keep learning, isn't it? Whatever stage you are in your career, you can learn something new every day, and it's great. So thank you very much indeed. Right, I'm just going to share my screen again, and I have the great delight now of sharing all of our achievements this year. So let me just go back to this. As a chapter, we've done amazingly well this year, and have really punched above our weight, I would say. So we started off the year by celebrating Professor Mark Hayter, who was admitted to the Researcher Hall of Fame. And Mark is currently head of nursing at Manchester Metropolitan University, and he's also the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Clinical Nursing and on the editorial boards for the Journal of School Nursing and Nursing Outlook. And his application to become a Researcher Hall of Fame was truly excellent and really reflects the myriad of work that Mark has undertaken and the value that he has shown to nursing across the UK, but also internationally. So it was great to hear that news. Mark picked up his Researcher Hall of Fame award at the July Sigma Convention Conference, and I think that went down really well. So many congratulations to Mark. As a chapter, we've done very well this year. We've gained our second Chapter Key Award, and this involves a submission that we make over a 2-year period, and the awards are then judged in the few months before the biennium, which occurs every 2 years. And our submission this year was about 50 pages long, and I know that many of you helped to contribute to the putting together of that Chapter Key Award application. I do apologise, I've got a dog that's snoring in the background here, so rather than waking the poor dog up, if you hear snoring noises, really don't worry. And also, we picked up our Regional Showcase of Excellence Award for the biennium period. And this illustrates our ability as a chapter to have met the call to action that was set by Rick Riccardi. And that call to action this year, as you can well imagine, was all around a lot of what Sharon has been talking about, was all around compassion and being kind to people and infusing joy. And we were able to showcase a whole myriad of things that we'd undertaken in this 2-year period in order to be awarded the Showcase of Excellence Award. So we're really delighted as a chapter that we achieved that as well. Then we get on to fantastic awards that were given at the biennium this year. And our own Professor Elizabeth Rosser was awarded the Mary Toll Wright Award for Excellence in Leadership. And this was presented by Dr. Ken Dion, who is now our new president of Sigma. And he presented it virtually to Elizabeth at the biennium. And the photograph that you can see there is Elizabeth standing next to the screen while she was being awarded the her award in Indianapolis virtually. And Janet Scammell very kindly hosted Elizabeth and me to stay with her while we had the award ceremony. And this award was given for Elizabeth's exceptional leadership and transformation of the landscape of nursing, both locally and globally, and for her years of nursing excellence in education and research in particular. And Elizabeth is really a worthy winner. She's very, very humble and doesn't realise what a brilliant nurse she is. But we're all very proud that she's in the chapter. And I know there was no hesitation whatsoever that Elizabeth would be given this award. So we're absolutely delighted. And then again, our own very Janet Scammell was awarded the Melanie C. Dreyer Award for Outstanding Chapter Support. And this was in recognition of her 30-year career in nursing academia and her sustained excellence in nursing education and leadership, in particular of the Phi Mu Chapter. And again, this is a fantastic award for Janet to have got, and recognition for our chapter. As far as we know, this award has never been given outside of an American university. And so it's a real great achievement that Janet has been awarded it. So we're delighted again that she was submitted and also that she was given the award. So fantastic news for Janet as well. And obviously both Janet and Elizabeth are brilliant representatives from Bournemouth University. So a great kudos for Bournemouth and for all the support that they've given to Bournemouth University and all the support that the university has given to both Janet and Elizabeth over the years as well. So we then go on to congratulating Les, and he's been elected onto the Sigma Governance Committee for a 4-year term of office. And that was, again, a fantastic achievement on Les's part, and particularly to be there for 4 years. And Les, I think, was the only European person standing, possibly even the only person standing for term of office outside America. So a really great achievement to have been elected. And he joins Elizabeth Rosser, who's also midway through her 4-year term of office on the Sigma Leadership Succession Committee. So we've, as one chapter, we've got 2 key people in big Sigma committees, which is absolutely brilliant. And as you know, I was very grateful to have been elected as the Sigma Europe Region Coordinator at the Biennium as well. And I'm really looking forward to my 2-year term of office for that. So we had some success in the Sigma Europe Regional Awards this year as well. And the first one was the European recognition of nursing excellence in education during COVID-19. And that was awarded to Bournemouth University Faculty of Nursing and Midwifery. And again, really worthy winners. And they very much represented nursing and midwifery faculties really throughout the world, who've put in an amazing amount of work to support students to be able to function during COVID-19. Incredibly difficult circumstances for all of the students, particularly one feels for students that have just started their first year in COVID as well. So congratulations to Bournemouth University, and I know that Vanessa Heaslip, who collected the award, was absolutely delighted to have been given the award as well. You know, really fantastic achievement. And then also our own Raluca Oten has been awarded, is the recipient of the Sigma European Recognition for Excellence in Nursing Clinical Practice during the COVID-19 pandemic. And again, many congratulations to Raluca for a great submission, and also for, again, representing really all of our clinical staff that have worked so hard again during such a difficult time. So we've done really well on the European awards as well this year. And then we had our annual Phi Mu Research Award winners. And Dr. Martin Hine from Bournemouth University was awarded a grant for his project about assessing the conditions of practice working environments for registered nurses in England to inform retention strategies. And then Michelle Croston from Manchester Metropolitan University was awarded a grant for a project looking at compassion-focused approach to resilience development for nursing students, innovation in nursing education. And Yasna Palmeiro Silva was awarded a grant for her project entitled Incorporating Climate Change, Environmental Health and Planetary Health into Undergraduate Nursing Curricula in Latin America. So really important topics that are transferable across the globe, which is great. And they will be giving feedback on their projects at our conference on the 8th of July later on this year. So I want to say an enormous thank you to our wonderful board for all of their help this last year. They've all been fantastic and have really stood up to all of the increased work that we've had with all of the online services, and also all of the work that we do in the chapter. We're a very vibrant chapter, and it's great that we've got so many people who are so committed to making the chapter work so well. And a big thank you also to everyone in the chapter who serves on all of our committees, both in England and also our Europe region. They're what to help to make our chapter such a joy to be a part of and such a success. And it's really essential that we have a vibrant population of people that want to promote nursing excellence in practice, education and research. That's what we're all here for. And having a vibrant chapter where we can promote that, and having a great comradeship of nurses and midwives together, being able to link in is great. So I'm just going to stop sharing now and just say it's been a wonderful year for our chapter, and to thank everybody indeed for all of their hard work and congratulate them on all of their success. And I'm just going to hand over to Steve Ursa now, who is the head of nursing at Bournemouth University, and is obviously Bournemouth University is pivotal to our chapter. So thank you very much, Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Liz. And just to say good afternoon to friends and colleagues from across the country and further afield. I just wanted to sort of say a few personal words, really, to congratulate some of our outstanding award winners, and to try to sort of put some of it in perspective, really. My first chapter was a little chapter in a Pennsylvania university, and I got a sort of taste of the fact that Sigma was something quite important, but something in the DNA of what was at that time North American nursing. And it's amazing here in 2021 to see that not only is the chapter in England raising sort of prominence, but really some of the outstanding leadership we have at multiple levels in the chapter in a very short period of time. Obviously, Sigma's about support and celebration and recognition and valuing scholarship, and in particular leadership in nursing across all the spheres, of course, practice and education research. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Janet and Elizabeth over many years, particularly for their outstanding awards. And it is no mean feat to get recognition from an international, as it is now, organisation such as Sigma, and the recognition of their hard work. And I was sort of thinking about some of the qualities that they both have, and many of them, obviously very different personalities, but many of them in common, really. And the thing that comes to mind when I think of both Elizabeth and Janet is their tenacity, really, their drive, their energy, that sort of determination to keep things moving. And I remember in the early days of this chapter, it wasn't easy to sort of get up the momentum and get people organized. You have to galvanize people to believe that we could set something up. And here we are, you know, not many years later, really, in the span of things, seeing recognition of these leadership awards for nursing, both globally and in our own country. So enormous strengths, their drive, their tenacity, their resilience, really, and their commitment to nursing. And both of them are sort of passion for the range of spheres of nursing, you know, both leadership, clinical practice itself, very focused on practice, as well as education and research. And that's been the case for both of them. So what wonderful role models for us. And I had the pleasure of just making a small contribution to trying to support their nomination, really. The other thing is they recognise the talents in other people, really. And one of the great things, I think, that I really like about Sigma is that sort of support for others, networking, bringing other people, creating opportunities for others, really. And, you know, that is so important in our profession, particularly one which is under such enormous pressure worldwide under a global pandemic. So enormous qualities that colleagues have. And so well done to you both, really outstanding. And also just to thank as well, finally, Liz, for your leadership too, and picking up the baton, and now, you know, having a presence there in the European sphere. And, you know, I really get the sense now that Sigma is very much not this North American dominated culture, but rather one which embraces all the strengths that we have in European nursing and further afield. So thank you, Liz, for sort of pressing on and helping to continue the good work of the chapter too. And Les, for finally, my colleague Les, for stepping in now various leadership roles. And you know, at Bournemouth, it's very important that we have a university base for this, but obviously we celebrate the range of universities, charities and other groups that unify us. And Les is now obviously taking on the support and the engagement of our own staff and students as well. Just an element of our rich and diverse chapter. So well done, colleagues, and in particular, Janet and Elizabeth, really a pleasure to see you get this award. I'm sorry you didn't manage to get to Indianapolis, but you know, and I'm sorry that we can't invite you to Bournemouth, although it's a bit of a grey day here, not the usual sunny Bournemouth. But hopefully in time we will invite you all back to Bournemouth where we can all be together again. So thank you, Liz and Les, for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. It's a great pleasure. Thanks to you all.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Steve. That was very, very kind words. And we're now going to hand over to Elizabeth herself, who's going to talk about opportunities available through Sigma. So thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for all your kind words. I think the chapter has matured so much, and we have done so much on the global stage now, and it's an absolute delight to see it. So it's my pleasure to present to you, if I can just share my screen a minute. Just a minute. Sorry. Right, can you all see that, and can you all hear me? Yeah, okay, right. So I've got 10 minutes only to present all the range of Sigma's international opportunities. And so in order to take your place, and it's every one of you, to take your place in the world's best, among the world's best nurses, it's up to me to give you an overview of the huge range of resources that Sigma offers globally. So this, just remember, this does not include all the resources that the individual chapters put on, for example, this afternoon's meeting, or indeed all the resources that Sigma's European region presents for us. So due to the time constraints, it will just be a very brief overview of what Sigma has to offer. So I won't go into a lot of detail. And I would like you to then therefore access the Sigma's website to delve much more deeply into the detail underpinning every single item on today's presentation. So for my agenda, I'd like to look first of all at the CPD online education programs, including webinars, podcasts, the Sigma Academies and the different programs under those academies, the Centre for Excellence in Nursing Education, the wealth of publications and research opportunities, and the global partnerships. So first of all, the CPD online education programs. So CPD online programs are targeted at a whole range of professional nurses, including clinical practitioners, faculty members, nurse leaders, researchers, and the newly qualified, as well as the student nurse. The types of online courses are into different sections, and they include courses on career advice, clinical information, education resources, etc. And I've given you the full list there. There are loads and loads of online courses, some of which are free. You don't have to pay a penny. Others cost minimal pennies really to access. Others are more expensive. So they're there for you to access, and they give you a whole range of opportunities. I've just given you a tiny example of the courses. For example, Nursing in a Changing Climate, a call to action. It's okay not to be okay. So some of the mental health aspects of being in nursing, becoming an entrepreneur. So there are loads and loads, and I have to say they have been written by an international workforce, so they're not not necessarily US centric or indeed related to a specific region. They are targeted hopefully at every member of Sigma. TPD webinars, and really these are increasing as time moves on, some of which have been in the past and some of which are yet to come. So for example, continuing professional development planning made incredibly easy. Embracing the moment, nursing in extraordinary times, and embarking on a professional development journey, building a future. The future you. So there are quite a number of webinars, but they are increasing. They've only really started in the last couple of years and are increasing. So I would urge you to access those. There are a number of Sigma casts or podcasts, and under each one of these, and there are a number, are a whole program of podcasts. For example, I was privileged to be invited to offer the UK's perspective on doctoral education in nursing. There are a number of podcasts in relation to doctoral education, a number of podcasts related to predatory journals and conferences, resilience in healthcare, clinician burnout, nurse suicide and prevention. So they're not just individual podcasts, they're a whole program of podcasts underneath different categories. There's the Excellence for Nursing in Nursing Education, and these are focused on career and leadership development for academic nurse educators. So different programs related to faculty role development, so educationists, as we would probably refer to, like faculty knowledge and skills development, and emerging educational administrator institute. So there are a number of opportunities under each of these sections. There are an increasing number of Sigma academies, which I have to say have been amazing opportunities for people for members to be engaged in, and you are paired with mentors globally. So there's the 12-month mentored experience, which is both virtual and in person, related to the Nurse Educator Academy development, the new Academic Leadership Academy, the Experienced Academic Leadership Academy, and the Nurse Leadership Academy for Practice. So these are annual events, so it's worth looking into these and to see if you would be interested in applying for them. There's the Virtual Academy, which is purely online, and it's writing for publication, which is a 6-month mentored experience. The Virtual Mini Academy, writing for nurses, a 6-week mentored virtual opportunity, and the Nursing Now Challenge, which is a 12-month mentored virtual experience. So it's worth looking into these academies. Certainly I was interested in putting forward some of our members a number of years ago when I was in the privileged position of being on Sigma's board, and I was just, you know, really amazed at that particular opportunity, because you are involved in mixing with and learning from colleagues from across the globe. Sigma publications, those of you who are familiar with Sigma publications, there are hundreds, and they're coming out all the time. There are books, there are journals, which of course you are, as a member of Sigma, you would be getting free. The International Journal of Nursing Scholarship, Worldviews and Evidence-Based Nursing, and also the new Nursing Centred, which was the old Reflections on Nursing. And there's a resource centre, not to forget, the Virginia Henderson Global e-repository, where conference presentations and papers are housed, and you have free access to that. There's a whole section of opportunities in supporting nursing research. For example, a increasingly large number of Sigma nursing research grants. That's not counting the research grants offered by the chapter or by the European region, but the central ones. And really, I would urge you to link with colleagues and members from across the world so that you are engaging with colleagues internationally and having a real opportunity of allowing your research outcomes to have a much greater impact. So it's what they're not huge amounts financially for these, but highly prestigious. Including in nursing research, we've already heard about the International Nurse Researcher Hall of Fame, and we have, as you can see, from the European region, a large number of nurse leaders and research leaders have been privileged. I put down Mark Hater as 2020, but it was actually 2021. But we've been very fortunate. These have been are always awarded in the July Research Congress, and incidentally the Research Congress next year will be in Edinburgh, so I would certainly urge those of you who are interested in presenting your work. The Research Congress takes place in a different country every year, and being in Edinburgh, it's going to be a lot cheaper for us to access next year. There's also the Emerging Nurse Researcher Award, and this is to recognise early career researchers, and there's one from each global region awarded. And we have been absolutely thrilled to recognise our very own Parveen Ali, who is with us today, which I'm absolutely delighted to see. And we've been very thin on the ground in relation to nominating early career researchers. And of course, our esteemed Parveen is now a nursing professor at Sheffield Hallam. So well done, Parveen. There she is. So we need to start to think about nominating early career researchers, so getting our thinking caps on and asking our president, Liz Westcott, to consider nominating early career researchers, as well as, of course, the International Hall of Fame. International conferences and events, and of course we do have our chapter annual conferences, as well as the European region conference biannually, so that they happen every 2 years. And I'm delighted to say that we have been successful, I think I'm allowed to say, we've been successful to host the European Regional Conference again in a few years' time. So there's the biennial convention, which we've just had in November every alternate year. If any of you haven't, well, if you haven't attended a central Sigma event, I would certainly urge you to attend the biennial convention. I have to say, it's like meeting up with family members. Again, you meet so many good friends, you develop good friends, you are introduced to esteemed leaders from across the world. Certainly something to attend if you can possibly achieve it. There's the annual research congress, as I said, will be in Edinburgh next year. So put in your abstracts now and travel just to Edinburgh and meet all these esteemed nurse researchers from across the globe. So there's a whole range, as I say, of events put on centrally. There's the Sigma Awards and Recognition, which of course we've heard a little bit about. There's Liz getting the very first Chapter Key Award. There's leadership recognition, and of course, as a member of the Leadership Succession Committee, I cannot possibly avoid the opportunity of saying, put yourselves forward for the next biennial to take place on the ballot for the Sigma committees, just as Les was successful, and of course Liz was successful. So it's such an opportunity to influence the organisation as a whole. In this connecting globally, opportunities to make your own connections as well as the formal connections. Don't forget, there's 135,000 active members globally in well over 90 countries. So there are lots of opportunities, both as educationalists, as researchers, and as practitioners, linking with colleagues from across the globe. So I would urge you, particularly if you're an educationalist, organise student trips to meet colleagues in other parts of the globe, and really maybe combine it with a holiday if you like, but certainly give students the opportunity of linking with other students, maybe virtually, but also in person. And there's all sorts of opportunities that you can engage individually. Don't forget, we have Sigma's 7 regions, 9 council in 7 regions, and we meet regularly throughout the biennium. And this is an opportunity for each of the chapters, or the regions, if you like, to link with and to influence policy, influence the direction of travel in Sigma's activities and policies. There are a number of formal partnerships which you can see here, and if Les is able to share this after the conference, then you can delve a bit more deeply into our formal global partnerships. And Sigma is very, very keen to engage in it's part of its strategic agenda to increase our global partnerships. Oh, that was a very quick whistle-step tour of the opportunities, and I would urge you to access the Sigma website to find out a little bit more about them. So over to you, Les.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Well done for getting all that in such a short period of time. Thank you. I appreciate it. What a great meeting. I don't think that very much positive has come out of COVID, but one thing that has is the opportunity to meet like this. Bournemouth is a lovely place, but I very much doubt we would have got Karen or Gianluca or others to travel to Bournemouth for a 2-hour session and to share with them. So thank you very much to everybody for joining us. Special thanks to all our speakers today and to our hosts today, and thank you very much to everybody else as well. It's all very well good making a presentation, but I think it's the discussion and the questioning that comes after which really makes it such a positive session. So thank you very much, everybody. So I think all I have left to do, we are over time, all I have left to do is to wish everybody a very happy Christmas and a happy New Year. And I hope everyone will stay safe and well. And I hope we will see you all again at a future meeting. So thank you very much, everybody.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
I will email the slides to